Welcome to the Sermon in the Valley with Pastor Rob Eller. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends and family. Thank you. Hello everybody, welcome back to the Sermon in the Valley. Pastor Rob Eller here with your Monday sermon episode with the readings and sermon from yesterday, Sunday, June 25th, the fourth Sunday after Pentecost. We have a lot to get through today, so here we go. A reading from the 20th chapter of Jeremiah. O Lord, you have enticed me, and I was enticed. You have overpowered me, and you have prevailed. I have become a laughingstock all day long. Everyone mocks me. For whenever I speak, I must cry out. I must shout violence and destruction. For the word of the Lord has become for me a reproach and a derision all day long. If I say I will not mention him or speak any more in his name, then within me there is something like a burning fire shut up in my bones. I am weary with holding it in, and I cannot. For I hear many whispering, terror is all around. Denounce him, let us denounce him. All my close friends are watching for me to stumble. Perhaps he can be enticed and we can prevail against him and take our revenge on him. But the Lord is with me like a dread warrior. Therefore my persecutors will stumble and they will not prevail. They will be greatly shamed, for they will not succeed. Their eternal dishonor will never be forgotten. O Lord of hosts, you test the righteous. You see the heart and the mind. Let me see for your retribution upon them. To you I have committed my cause. Sing praise to the Lord. Praise the Lord. For he has delivered the life of the needy from the hands of evildoers. The word of the Lord. The Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 10th chapter. Jesus said to the 12, A disciple is not above the teacher, nor a slave above the master. It is enough for the disciple to be like the teacher, and the slave like the master. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebul, how much more will they malign those of his household? So have no fear of them. For nothing is covered up that will not be uncovered, and nothing secret that will not become known. What I say to you in the dark, tell in the light, and what you hear whispered, proclaim from the housetops. Do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. And even the hairs of your head are all counted. So do not be afraid. You are of more value than many sparrows. Everyone, therefore, who acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever denies me before others, I also will deny before my Father in heaven. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And one's foes will be members of one's own household. Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take up the cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Those who find their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. The Gospel of the Lord. Life is hard. If I could sum up everything, especially the scriptures we just heard, it would be that life is hard. We think we have everything figured out. We think that nothing could possibly go wrong. And then the other shoe drops. And we're left wondering what just happened to us. And when that happens, we're left with 2 choices: to lament and complain about what is happening to us, or we pick up the pieces, shake the dust off of us, and continue on, knowing that what we're doing is much too important to give up on now. Sometimes that adversity that we face is outside of our control. Other times it's our own creation. There is the well-known phrase, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. In other words, take that sour thing and make something useful out of it. I recently saw an interesting take on that phrase. You see, the lemons we know of today are actually a hybrid fruit of our own creation. Sometimes that sour thing we're handed is of our own doing. But regardless, we still need to make the best of it. A wise person once told me, the gospel comforts the terrified soul and terrifies the comforted soul. We have this notion that the gospel is supposed to always be happy. It's always supposed to make us feel good inside. But that's not the case. If you only want to feel good while reading the Bible, you're looking in the wrong place. The Bible is full of difficult truths that challenge the ways we think and act. There are moments of darkness and despair that cause us to not feel so good inside. But that's the whole point, because Jesus didn't come to maintain the status quo that for so long hadn't worked. He came to disrupt and change the world. That changing in the status quo is also meant to change us as well. We can't expect to do this world-changing missional work without ourselves being changed in the process. If we aren't changed, then what was the point? Was it just to make us look good, or was it because we thought we didn't need to change? We are in the middle of what is known as Jesus' Missionary Discourse, where he is explaining to his disciples what they can expect as they journey through the countryside in his name. Jesus warns his disciples that the message he is bringing is one that will cause divisions to happen among friends and even among family. This is the theme that has been throughout the Bible as far back as the writing of the prophets. In our first reading from Jeremiah today, Jeremiah was lamenting to God about all the hardships he was facing because of his prophesying. He has been warning Jerusalem that unless they turn back to God, their city will be destroyed. He is trying to convince the people he knows about this hard truth, but they refuse to listen. Jeremiah wasn't preaching what the people wanted to hear, and his messages were not a feel-good sermon. Instead, they mock him, waiting for him to stumble and fail. I don't know about all of you, but if someone I was close to was doing that to me, I would be demoralized, at least at first. I would start to question what I was doing, but then my mind would switch from self-doubt, and I would use that derision from others as fuel to help, that would motivate me to prove them wrong. When I was first discerning my call into ministry, there were some people who doubted my call, and even told me, "You will never make it as a pastor. And even if you get into seminary, and I don't think you will." Yeah, that stung. That hurt. But I didn't let it take me down. I used that doubt from others as motivation to prove them wrong, because I knew in my heart that this is what I was supposed to be doing. Just like Jeremiah knew that he was supposed to continue with his work as a prophet. When we face that doubt, we can't let it control us, but instead it needs to fuel us. When someone thinks or wants you to fail, you don't let it consume you. You take those words and use them to keep you going. Facing all that, Jeremiah then turns his frustration towards God, lamenting that the people won't listen to him, and even when he wants to give up, he can't. Jeremiah could not stop from preaching. It was like a burning fire deep within his bones. And he's more troubled if he doesn't say anything versus if he did. You ever have that happen to you? You know what you must do or say, and even though you're afraid of how people will react to it, you're more upset with yourself if you don't do it. You see someone being pushed around, ignored, or mistreated. You know you have to say something or intervene, but you're afraid of what will happen to you in the process. We've all faced it. From seeing bullies in school, to someone who is homeless asking for help being chased from their street corner, to seeing a whole group of people being demonized just for who they are, or having their existence denied. We fear the backlash we'll face, but we know that it pales in comparison to what we'll feel if we don't say anything at all. There's a famous quote attributed to German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer: "Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act." Continuing on with Jesus' missionary discourse in Matthew that we started last week, Jesus continues to remind his disciples that his radical gospel message will cause people to be uncomfortable and angry. Maybe even turn people against each other because they, like the people who Jeremiah preached to, don't want to listen and heed that message. This message from Jesus was terrifying to those who were comfortable in the places they were. They didn't want to think about their lives being turned upside down for the sake of the gospel. Jesus wants disciples who are willing to give up what they know, to deny themselves, pick up their crosses, and follow him. If we are willing to give up what we know, we'll gain something far greater than that in the end. All of this for a very radical lesson he had to teach us, which was simply to love. That is what Jesus wants us to do, to love one another, to love our neighbors, love our enemies, anyone and everyone we encounter. No strings attached, no qualifiers, no prerequisites. We are simply to love everyone. That is the radical status quo changing lesson Jesus wanted to impart on us. In Jesus' time, it meant love for tax collectors, the prostitutes, the sick, the poor, the widows, the orphans. Today it means love for everyone, no matter what they look like, where they are from, what their socioeconomic status is, who they love, or how they identify. John Pavlitz, in his book, If God is Love, Don't Be a Jerk, wrote, "The core of Jesus' teaching was the greatest commandment, not the greatest suggestion, to love your neighbor as yourself. And that designation of neighbor had nothing to do with geography or nationality, both shared divinity reflecting humanity. To claim the Christian faith is to aspire to practice the most radical kind of hospitality and the most counterintuitive compassion for the other. Jesus was an itinerant street preacher who modeled sacrificial love and who welcomed to his table both beggar and soldier, both priest and prostitute, both Jew and Samaritan." We, as a nation and society, have become too broken, too divided over the last 20 years or so. As disagreements have come about, rather than trying to come together on a consensus, we have retreated to our respective corners and continue to dig in our heels and refuse to listen to each other. These divisions have broken up friendships, families, and yes, even churches. The ELCA faced it in 2009. And now our siblings in the United Methodist Church are in the same position. We can disagree about many things, as long as it's not about how people identify themselves. And through all that, we can still get along. But instead of talking about it and working through those differences, we move further and further apart, forgetting who we are called to be and who we are called to serve. We forget that in the middle is where love exists. One of my favorite songs that has come out in the last few years is "Everybody Walking This Land," which was covered by country a cappella group Home Free. Throughout the song, the lyrics ask different groups of people to, with open hearts, open minds, lend a helping hand each time. To the mothers and the brothers and the sisters and the fathers, everybody walking this land. As the verses go on, that list expands to include believers, pretenders, bona fide sinners, and prophets, saints, angels, ladies, and all you gentlemen. Saying that it doesn't matter how we differ, we should still come together and call out the racist, fascist, nihilists, and bigots. Telling them your actions will not stand. Imploring them to pray and change their ways. It's a powerful song, and I encourage all of you to listen to it. What we do as Christians, the mission that God gave us, is much too important to let our differences divide us or let adversity prevent us from fulfilling it. The world may not like the hard truths we have to say, but that doesn't mean we don't say them. On the contrary, it means that they need to be heard even more. We cannot give up on spreading the love of God with everyone and sharing the good news with all who need to hear it. We can bring everyone together. All we need is a little love. And all of God's people said, Amen. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this sermon today. If you think it's just as important as I do, please share it with your friends and family. Share this podcast with your friends and family. Subscribe to it. Spread the good news for all to hear. God's peace be with all of you. Have a blessed day.